Desiree Kameka here. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and the Housing Network for the Madison House Autism Foundation. This is my wonderful fiance, Jeffrey Galloway, and our roommate, Daniel. And it is Daniel's Able account that we are talking about. So, to start off, I would like to ask Jeffrey. He is an occupational therapist that has developed vocational rehab programs, and I would like to know, do you feel as if people are afraid to start working because they might lose their benefits?
Absolutely. In transitioning, I've had a lot of parents who I've known, these families, and their children have been with me for a couple of years, and they're going from ages 16, 17, 18 to 20, and the parents are very concerned about losing their Social Security income benefits. They do not understand a lot of the laws. Some of them are outdated, the ones that they do, and really I've had parents tell me that they are concerned and would not like to start working, would not like their children to start working because of the loss of the benefits. And so Daniel has helped us to learn, and we're learning through doing here with Daniel and moving forward.
It's true. And these Able accounts, gosh, there was so much advocacy that went into creating them. So this all started in 2014 when the Achieving a Better Life Experience Act was passed. And that what happened there was it created the regulations at the federal level to be able to allow Able accounts to occur in each of the states. And so essentially it's similar to a 529 account. So it's a savings account. It's a money account where there's a tax advantage. So the money that's in that account does not get taxed, but it also helps the individual if they are in means-tested programs. So if someone is on Medicaid or SNAP, so food stamps, or SSI, all of those are means tested, which means that they cannot have a certain more than a certain amount of money in their name at any time. Otherwise, they would lose those benefits because they had too much, right? They had too many assets. So that was a big problem. Daniel, did you ever feel afraid to start working in the past?
No, because before I met Desi and Jeff, I kind of was looking on my own. I wanted to work, but no one would take me, as I had a job working at construction, working on a house done by the steak house in Elizabeth, but then he never called me back. So that was one incident, and then there was one incident where I was working with a friend, and it's hard to work with a friend, you know, and because you want to be friends, and yet you want to be professionals at the same time. So that didn't work out too well. But so no, and then when I started wanting to work, when I met Jeff and Desi, I started getting scared of it a little bit because of the experiences.
Well, where do you work now?
I work at Promise Ranch, and I also work at a sawmill in Elizabeth, not the restaurant, but an actual sawmill, and I'm having fun.
Yeah, and he's starting to make money. Woohoo! But with that, you know, Jeff is Daniel's rep payee, and so he was really interested in Able because Daniel was making money, and Daniel wanted to start saving. And so we did some research, and what a lot of people, I think that the misconception is if your state doesn't have an Able program, that you can't access one. But that's not true. So, Jeffrey, can you tell us about where our Able program is based? And maybe how you guys started opening it?
So our Able program is based in Nebraska, one state over. I found it very interesting that on the website at Able NRC, you go and it has basically a picture of the United States, and you click on your prospective state, And each state does have a page there to update what is going on with that independent state. The state of Colorado, it actually says there are no able accounts available in the United States currently, which is false. I did find out that there are 5 states, I believe.
6. There was an added one. So there's Ohio, Nebraska, Tennessee, Michigan, Oregon, and Florida. And Kentucky. Sorry.
Right. And some of those you can open an account from a different state, and others you cannot.
That's correct.
In Nebraska, they do allow you to open an account being out of state, and they are fully aware that as your state opens the availability to have an able account, that you can transfer. So that's a very big positive that Nebraska offers us. We were discussing the reasons of choosing Nebraska, and I said, unfortunately, I'm pretty simple. I do like the locality of it. It's 1 state away. It's a drive away. The same reason we do our banking is with a smaller bank. The local aspect of things where you get to actually know and speak with a person is valuable to us so that they can help us to understand the options. There are a lot, and so that to me was a very big benefit.
And Daniel, you and Jeff, from what I remember, opened it together. Can you tell us what you did? How did you do that? How did you open an able account?
Besides forgetting my medication, we were wanting to open one, and I was excited to open one. But one day I was going on my merry way, and I get a call saying I needed to come home, and I was like, oh, I forgot my pills, and I came home, and plus of that, we got on the computer. Mm-hmm. I don't really like all those questions that people ask in different ways, but this website didn't do that. This website just got to the point, and then you clicked on it, and there's common sense kind of questions. So,
and we understood what the options were.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing, is understanding the investment. One of the questions does require an investment option. And then as you move down and begin reading about all those, under that there is the bank savings option, which mimics a savings account. Nebraska currently does not have, although they're working on, a checking account that is associated with a debit card. And so we chose the best option at the moment, which was the savings account. Daniel was very motivated that day to set up that account. And can you tell us why? I think the motivation is very important. Why are you motivated to save this money?
I want to become independent, and there's steps in that. By becoming independent, you kind of need a place to stay, but most importantly, I just got my learner's permit. So it was just maybe last year, or maybe getting close to last year. March 5th was when I got it. But anyways, I need a truck, or a vehicle, not a truck, but I want a truck. And so you have to have money for that, and a lot of savings, and plus another goal is to have a small tiny home, and that takes money too. So
it's true, and if Daniel wanted to save that money without an able account and just put it in his bank, once he got to that $2,000 limit, he would get cut off from Social Security, which is no bueno. And so this able account has literally been what has taken down that barrier for independence for Daniel. And he's getting to the point where Daniel can drive, and he needs to have a car to get to where he's going. And we live in a rural, semi-rural area, and there's no public transportation. Daniel can take public transportation. He's done it in the past, but really we don't have a bus line right out of our door. We live on a ranch. And so it's really important that Daniel is able to drive and save and buy a car. Now, something that's really that we were a little bit confused about, and we've realized that a lot of our local representatives don't necessarily know this ABLE thing, right? And so we have had to do a lot of educating of others. Even people, educating people who we would have assumed would know about ABLE accounts. And so I have found it really helpful.
Like my
to
brother
have,
and my mom.
well, yeah, your brother and your mom, but I was thinking even our case manager, right? And our local Social Security office, the people that we talk to. So what has been really helpful is being able to give them the POMs from Social Security, and that's the Program Operations Manual. And we'll throw that link up there real quick so that you can see it. But that has been really helpful because that gives people a little bit more of like, oh, okay, this is a real thing. This is a regulations. Oh, I can see where it keeps, Daniel's resources safe. Another thing that we learned that's really important is even though Daniel's going to be putting the money that he earns into his ABLE account, he's still earning money because he's working. And so we have to report his income to Social Security. And in Colorado, we have what's called like it's 300% of SSI. If Daniel starts to earn more than 300% of SSI, which is around $2,200, Daniel could lose his Medicaid. And that is huge. So yes, it protects his resources. So like over Christmas, if Daniel decided to have people donate to his ABLE account or give to his ABLE account instead of getting presents, they can do that, and that's not necessarily considered income because it's not him earning income. That's money getting put into his ABLE. But Daniel, when he's working and he's getting a paycheck, he cannot go more than $2,200 a month. Otherwise, he will lose his Medicaid. And some states they use a 100% rule. So it's not a 300% rule, it's a 100% rule. And some states have the ability for people to be able to stay on a waiver and make more than the 100% of SSI. But it is so important that if you are working, you are on Medicaid, you need to make sure you know what your income limit is so that you don't lose your Medicaid. Because, Daniel gets the support of his job coach, his case manager, of us through Medicaid. And if he were to lose that, I think it would challenge the stability of his work. So it's really important to know what your Medicaid income limits are in your state because ABLE does not protect you against earning more than that income limit. So yeah.
Right.
The other thing, ABLE has some restrictions. So there are some rules in terms of what you can and can't do with an ABLE account. So Daniel cannot put more than $14,000 into his ABLE account a year. If he puts more than, it's just not possible. You can't do it. You can't put more than $14,000 into his account for a year. But in the next, let's say 8 years, if he did get $14,000 in, you cannot have more than $100,000 in your ABLE account. If you have more than $100,000, then it will start affecting your public benefits. So wouldn't that be awesome if you had $100,000 in a bank account?
Yeah, you just lost me there.
Well, that's okay. That's why you have Jeff to help you as your payee.
Right.
So that's really important. And then also there's an age limit. So Daniel is under 26, and so he automatically qualifies because he's on SSI. If you're on SSI or SSDI, you automatically qualify for an ABLE account. But if you're not on SSI or SSDI and you have other means-tested stuff, like SNAP or affordable housing, vouchers, then you need to be able to prove that the onset of your disability happened before the age of 26. So a lot of people on the spectrum don't get diagnosed until they're older. And so you don't have to have an official diagnosis, but you have to be able to show evidence that you had autism before you were 26 years old. And so whether that's when you were in school, you had an IEP, or if your doctor can write a note, or if you had other mental health challenges that's documented, that's going to be really important.
Now, does bullying count? Like for me, it was like they bullied me and them and.
It's true. So you are, one, eligible because you're on SSI, and two, because you're on the autism spectrum.
Well, I'm just saying if you weren't.
So bullying is a symptom of some of these things. A lot of times it's hard to communicate and have relationships because of different diagnosis, and bullying is an unfortunate symptom of that.
Yeah, people aren't very cool.
Yeah.
So really important you know that. There's a question. Sorry, I have to read it. How does one determine their Medicaid income limit? So in Colorado, it is 300%, so it's around $2,200. If you Google Medicaid income limit Kentucky, Medicaid income limit
Your state.
New York 2016 or 2017, that's the best way to get the most accurate information. So just put it in a search engine, right? Medicaid income limit 2016. And that should give you a pretty good idea. Or call your local Medicaid office, for sure.
Hi, Brian.
And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on was there are some advocacy efforts wanting to expand ABLE. So one of those efforts is if these ABLE accounts aren't just available for adults, they're also available for children. So if you have a child with a disability, you can open up an ABLE account in your child's name. And that child, you can start saving for your child for the future. So like if ABLE accounts were around when Daniel was 5, and then someone started putting in thousands of dollars a year, when Daniel turned 18...
Is that another question?
Okay, when Daniel turned 18, then he would be able to use that money to buy a truck or to buy a house. So that's pretty cool.
So I saw a question earlier that I can address, and it was about assets and how assets affect your federal income and Medicaid. And basically, I had a discussion with my Social Security account manager. It was basically Daniel's manager from Social Security, Hans. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
He helped us out a lot, right?
Yeah.
And answered a lot of those questions. And I would say that those things are specific to your account. And the manager that we had from Social Security very clearly told us that we could have assets. Now, we're talking about a used truck for Daniel as an asset for a vehicle. I'm sure that if we were to buy a $50,000 truck, then they would ask questions.
In addition to his used truck. Or like if Daniel owned his home and then got another home, that's no longer Daniel's primary home or his primary vehicle. So those aren't necessarily counted as assets because they're necessary. Daniel needs a home. So Daniel could live in a $3 million home. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But he could live in a $3 million home. If it's his primary home and he doesn't have another home, it's okay. That's his home. It's not considered
I'm not sure about
an
that.
asset.
I'm not sure about that because of the price. We all understand the reality of monetary value, and that Medicaid will probably red flag a $3 million home. I'm just going to be honest there. So have a dose of reality as well.
Contact your local office. As you can see, this is how things happen. It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then we call a bunch of people and we figure it out. And honestly, that's kind of how it is. You just got to keep pushing and always asking questions. So the advocacy that's coming out is they want to be able to get, if say you start a 529 account for for somebody and just a regular 529 college savings account, if it turns out that that person does not go to college due to disability, then that 529 account can get rolled over into an ABLE account. So that's one piece of legislation, federal legislation on the table. And then another one is talking about the age limit. So expanding the age limit so that it's not 26. There's a lot of people who acquire a brain injury and they may be 30. And if they're 30 and they acquire a brain injury, they still need to have this mechanism to be able to save. So that's some of the legislation that's on the table. Also, in your state, if you go to the National ABLE Resource Center and your state doesn't have an ABLE account yet, the National Down Syndrome Society does a really great job of like staying on top of what other states are doing and sharing that information. So there's a link that will pop up very soon that shows in your state where is legislation in the process to get ABLE where you live. Now, remember, you don't have to wait until your state opens ABLE accounts. You can get an ABLE account in a different state. And then in the future, if you decide that your state has a better program or whatever, then you can transfer that. You won't have to, but you can.
Is there another question?
Let's see.
It's by my mom, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Hi, Lori.
how does one prove or show evidence of ASD prior to age 26 to the administration people of ABLE accounts? At least, how did that play out for your experience? Our experience was simple, a yes or no question. And, I think that if there are questions that come up after that, then you would obviously have to prove a diagnosis. With the state of Nebraska, I did call them on the phone, and we confirmed that Daniel's diagnosis was before age 26. How old are you now?
24.
Yeah, so...
March 5th, I'm going to be 25. So.
Okay, so we're getting right to that age. But, yes, it was a simple yes or no question.
So they asked you on the phone if Daniel...
As well as online. So online on the application, it's a yes or no. And then it probably asks for your diagnosis. I believe that is how I remember it.
And it could have been, too, since Daniel's already getting SSI, that they did not require any additional documentation, but they might ask because if someone is not on SSI, so that's or SSDI. So that's something to consider. And what I have heard from going to different conferences and talking to different people is that if a doctor can write that says that, yes, this person is on the autism spectrum, autism is a developmental disability from birth, it is not acquired. This person has had a history of challenges because of the impairments of autism, and that doctor's note could potentially be enough. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I would say you could contact the National ABLE Resource Center. That is that website and that information is run by the National Disability Institute, and they may be able to give you a little bit more guidance on that. Also, that website has really great webinars. Something that has been asked in the past is, well, if I have a special needs trust, why do I need an ABLE account, or how does an ABLE account mix with a special needs trust? And they have a webinar on that, which is really great. Another interesting detail is if Daniel got hit by a bus and he had $30,000 in his bank account, all of that would go back to the government. So after, his funeral expenses and all that, it would all go back to the government. I know. So that's something to consider. But for Daniel, it was a really easy way to be able to save money. To set up a special needs trust wasn't possible. There wasn't enough money to be able to set that up. It's just that's not the situation for him. He needed a mechanism that was easy to open, that he can start saving now. And that's what ABLE accounts were, and that's why it worked so well for Daniel. And the ABLE accounts have to be in the person with the disability's name. And you can only have one ABLE account. You can't have 5 ABLE accounts, just one. but that gives them the opportunity to be able to control money that they have saved. And that money can be used for anything that's disability related, including housing, which is a pretty big deal. So that's, the webinar really explains it a lot better than I did with a lot more detail, but I highly suggest you look at that National Able Resource Center because it has a lot of really good information. All right, what will it take to bring this to my area? Kathy, advocacy! So my suggestion would be for you is to go to the National Down Syndrome Society webpage. They have they'll have the link of where your state is in the legislative process, and then you need to make some phone calls. Call your representatives, especially once the election. Once the election turns over to the new administration, make sure you're building relationships with your new representatives. They don't know what happens on the ground. They don't know Daniel's story and how Able Account has, really transformed what he's going to be able to do in the future. We need to be telling those stories because, honestly, they won't know otherwise. So, yes, go check out the National Down Syndrome Society. Goes back to the Able Account goes back to the state, or is it the Special Needs Trust?
It doesn't particularly go back.
So the Able Account, the Special Needs Trust, depending on what type of Special Needs Trust you open, can go back to Medicaid. It's basically money's going back to Medicaid. So the Able Account the extra money does go back to Medicaid. Is that what you wanted to say?
Sure. Yes.
Can you field another question? Because
So
I'm holding.
Kathy has a question called the question is, how does this account work? And there's so many details that I would say you need to reach out. You need to make a decision who to reach out to, and then answer those questions based on your individual situation. Our account is specific to Daniel, and we chose to go to Nebraska, and the account we chose works very similar to a savings account. So we put money in, and it is actually safeguarded against Social Security judging Daniel on that income based on his benefits, so that he does not lose his Social Security benefits.
And if you go to the National Able Resource Center, they have a really neat tool where you can select multiple states. We didn't have that tool when we were looking at this. We had to do it a little bit differently. But now they have this really cool tool on the website where you can select different states, and there's different questions, and they'll put side by side the differences between the different states, which is pretty good. As Jeff mentioned before, you have some of them that act just as like a savings account, but there are some states that are wanting to create it like a checking account. So it's just like kind of opening up an online checking account where someone could actually have a debit card to pay for things. So if they go to the doctor, they can use their Able account money to be able to pay right there just by using a debit card, which is really neat. And there's also investment options. So do you want to talk about that in Nebraska?
Well, the investment options in Nebraska are wide, and to be honest, I would probably consult a financial manager if I was going to be doing investment options. They do a good job on the Nebraska website of helping you to understand those options, and basically I think the titles are conservative or maybe something higher risk, really. I think that is the title of it. But I think those options are intended for a caregiver that is trying to look out for their loved one. A very good option for those people. For us, it was a little bit more reserved in that it's direct use by Daniel. And so we were seeking something that just simply would not affect his Social Security.
So Kathy says, So this account is only for medical and education. No!
No.
The account is for anything that is disability related. So Daniel has to save money in this special account because he has a disability that could put him at risk of losing his public benefits. So Daniel can use that money on transportation, so he could use it to buy his primary vehicle. He can use it to put a down payment on a house or to pay rent on a house. He can use it for co-pays, or if something happened medically, he could use it for filling his prescriptions. He can use it for anything that is disability related. And if you go to the Able National Resource Center,
How about bathe? Like,
Bathing.
like
Yes.
hygiene products,
yeah.
you can use it for hygiene products.
Okay.
So
I think the abilities are very wide. You know, the option here is to have an account to put money that does not affect your income. And really, you have to be real about the goals here. Is your goal to move into an independent situation like Daniel's? Ours is very specific, but I think the outcomes and the goals are important when you're thinking about these accounts. Moving into a situation where Daniel's independent, he may be able to actually go beyond some of those expectations where he does not need the Social Security income anyway. And so that's a very high goal, very high expectation. But you know, wouldn't it be nice to not need that? This protects that income while we're transitioning.
right, and it's important to know that the same thing looking at the Medicaid. So Social Security, one world, right? Medicaid, another world. So even though Daniel may not be getting SSI anymore because he's making too much money, he still cannot make too much money. Otherwise, he would lose his Medicaid. And like I said, in Colorado, it's the 300% rule, so it's $2,200 a month. If he makes more than $2,200 a month, he will lose his Medicaid, and we don't want that.
What about entertainment? I think that depends.
Know.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're going to have to look that one up, Kathy. I don't know.
I would go to your Social Security person with that one. I'm sure you could justify some things.
Like bike riding or...
Well, maybe so. You know, you could justify
Depends.
exercise. You could justify a couple of things, but I would say
just
go to your individual Social Security manager.
Yeah.
And if someone is getting, let's say someone's getting $500 a month of SSDI, instead of using that money to pay for groceries or something, you could use your Able account money and then have that $500. Well, no, because if you're getting it from SSDI, then you have to be able to track it in certain ways and it has to be used for X, Y, Z. I don't know. That's a tough question, Kathy. I don't know how much fun you're allowed to have with your Able money.
You know, I would say that
look it
whatever your current lifestyle is, I mean, if your only income is your SSDI or SSI, Social Security Income, SSI, then...
Supplemental Security Income. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. So if that's your only income and you're currently living off of that and your Social Security manager has approved those things, then you should be fine with your entertainment.
That's our dogs.
But anyway, all right, so moving on. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
So any other questions out there? Were there any other questions? Does that scroll up anymore?
Is there any other questions?
Okay.
We're good.
One of the things that I really wanted to just kind of highlight, like if you're a parent and you have a child with special needs, this is a great opportunity for you to open up an Able account, and instead of asking for holiday gifts that maybe they don't need, people can start contributing to somebody's Able. And then when they get to adulthood, like Daniel's age, they have some money to be able to invest into things like housing, transportation, or having extra direct care assistance that isn't covered by a waiver, or being able to do just expanding opportunities because you have a little bit more financial freedom. So if you know someone who has a child with a disability, I highly suggest that you teach them about ABLE and say, hey, this might be something. Or if, Daniel, if you decide that instead of you Christmas gifts, that you ask people to put money into your ABLE account, that can happen. Moses wants to be part of the conversation.
Our dog.
Well,
what was the question? I didn't really hear it after the bark.
Would you like to ask people to donate to your ABLE account or put money into your ABLE account?
No, just send me chocolate. Send me lots of chocolate.
Do you have anything you would like to add?
Oh, there's another question. Let's see what we have here. Interesting idea. Offer other to contribute to an individual's ABLE account. Do online links work for such? That's a great question. So you can do transfers usually at your local bank. Withdrawals, transfers. A lot of times for one bank to do it within their own organization, it does not cost any money. But to transfer money from one banking organization to another, it does cost money. Do online links work for such? I've seen with my local bank that we have online links to make a transfer. Everybody loves Daniel. Me too. We all do. So anyway, to answer Brian's question, online links would work, but I would expect them to cost money.
Yeah. And small detail, does it cost any money for you to have an ABLE account every year?
It's $45, right?
Yes.
And I put in a bit, but
they charge $11.25 every quarter of the year.
Yeah.
So they try to make it affordable, but there is a cost to that, and I think it's well worth it.
Yeah, and going back to the question where entertainment, sometimes I find entertainment as fiddling with wood on a lathe or something like that. Sometimes and you asked the question about sending money in accounts. Entertainment, yes. In the aspect of, I like doing woodworking, and if I could, if I had money in the ABLE account for woodworking, that's fun to me. So it's entertainment, but
it's also a potential
job.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Yeah, it's
very subjective.
Very subjective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you read the article, so Jeff wrote an article about ABLE accounts, and in the article there's a picture, and there is this beautiful table, and I think Jeff is giving Daniel bunny ears in the picture, but that is a table that Daniel had made, and we're sitting right in front of it. I'm not going to show you because then you're going to see the rest of my house, but we're sitting at that table. And so Daniel does have a hobby, which is just a hobby now, but if he were able to purchase some tools, he could make that another income stream for himself because he can make bowls and spoons and stuff like that.
Hi, Mom.
Have you come across any restrictions in having your own company? So that actually expands your options, kind of like what we were talking about, because instead of Daniel just buying a lathe for his own personal entertainment and enjoyment, it's actually an expense for his business. So he can maybe have some assets and tools that otherwise he wouldn't be able to have if it wasn't something that he was interested in generating money on. And vocational rehab in your state, sometimes they don't always promote entrepreneurship, but you can certainly get access to supports in Voc Rehab on an entrepreneurial track. So that's really important to know, because sometimes they'll say, oh no, you can't do it, but there are entrepreneur specialists in vocational rehab. And creating social enterprises is becoming really popular as well. There's a couple of organizations who help people. Celebrate EDU is one that Faith recently told me about that was really good. Rising Tide U, they do webinars on creating your own business. So yeah, there are some resources out there that are free, and then there's others like Voc Rehab that you can get support with through your state. But that was a long answer to a seemingly small question.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Lori, I've had a lot of interactions with counselors at the Department of Vocational Rehab, and I would say getting to know your counselor at the DVR has been very valuable and important to me, and they help you to set goals for clients, for loved ones, and really can talk you through things like that.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, parting words? Parting words?
You can take it, dear.
Open an able account if that works for your individual situation. For Daniel, I feel as if it is a major stepping stone for his future.
Welcome.
So thank you all for being on the call, and
Thank you.
we'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.